Today I am going to discuss about the laboratory diagnosis of parasitic disease. So what is parasites? Parasites are the live organism living in or on and having some metabolic dependence on another organism, which is known as the host. And what is parasitism is a relationship in which one of the participants, that is the parasite, either harms its host or in some sense lives at its expense of the host. So this parasite can be a protozoa, metazoa, endoparasite, or it can be an ectoparasite. Protozoa means they are unicellular organisms such as Plasmodia. Metazoa means they are multicellular organisms like helminths or arthropods. Endoparasites are the parasites that live within the another living organism like malaria or giardia. And ectoparasites are the parasite that lives on the external surface of the another living organism. Mostly they are the larvae or ticks or any other arthropods. Why we have to go in detail about the laboratory diagnosis of parasitology? Because there are so many parasites which are the causing agent for the major public health problems all over the world. Recent estimates of the prevalence of parasites in the world are mainly in the billions in the form of Ascaris, hookworm infection, whipworm infection, filarial worm, malaria, schistosomes, amoebiasis, tinea, and that is the tapeworm, clonorchis, and Chagas disease. So there are millions of people which are affected by the parasitic infection and having the high mortality and even the morbidity also by this parasitic infection. So it is very important that we have a proper diagnosis as early as possible by this parasitic infection. These parasites can be an intestinal parasite or urogenital parasite according to the site where they habitate. So mainly the protozoa and helminth are intestinal and urogenital parasite. Tissue and blood parasites are a few of the protozoa, and the helminths are also the tissue and blood parasites. These parasites can affect any organ of our body. None of the organ is left by the parasite, and so whenever any sample is suspected, we have to have an identification for parasite also. We have to have a DD for parasitic infection also, because it can affect the brain, it can affect the CSF, it can affect the eye, it can affect the muscles, joint, chest, heart, liver, stomach, pancreas, that is intestine, also the kidney, bladder. So every organ is affected by the parasite. So whenever we are suspecting infection, we have to rule out the parasite according to the endemicity and the area from which the patient is coming. So this diagnosis of parasitic infection is mainly by two means, that is the clinical, another is the laboratory. Purpose of laboratory diagnosis that we can confirm that our clinical suspicion is because of the parasite and identification of unsuspected infection. Suppose we have a patient with a diarrhea, we have ruled out that it is not a bacterial, it is not a viral, it is a parasitic infection according to the patient condition and whatever we had done clinically. So now we have to rule out, we have to confirm that it is mainly by parasitic infection, this diarrhea. So we have to rule out by the laboratory finding in the form of any kind of examination of stool or whatever we can do. So the specimen which can be collected for the parasitic identification or parasitic lab diagnosis is the stool sample, blood sample, serum sample, plasma sample, other. It can be an anal swab, duodenal aspirate, sputum, urine, urogenital specimen according to the suspected parasitic infection. We can also go for the tissue sample and aspirates also. So before discussing the stool examination, how we have to collect the stool sample should be collected in a clean, dry, white mouth, leak-proof container. It should be handled carefully. We can use the preservative sometime if there is transportation delay in the form of 10% formalin, but we have to prevent to use this preservative when we are suspecting some amoeba and ciliates and we want to go for the motility testing from this stool, then we should avoid the use of preservative. If the stool is semi-solid or it is liquid, it should be examined within 15 minutes because the motility of this parasite will be very clearly sealed in liquid and semi-solid stool if it is examined within 15 minutes. Otherwise, it will be missed. Ideally, stool sample should not be mixed with the urine or disinfectant as it will kill the trophozoites motility and we will not be able to identify the trophozoite based on their motility. Specimen obtained by the enema and laxatives are often positive for the worm eggs or adult worm. So, stool sample collection is very important. There are few points which is also should be kept in the mind. After the stool sample which is collected and transported to the lab, we have to go for the two major examinations, that is gross or macroscopic examination and the microscopic examination. In the macroscopic examination, we can see that the stool is having the amount of 2 ml or 2 to 5 ml, having the consistency in the form of mucoid, mucopurulent or bloody type of stool. It is having a consistency in the form of sticky to the container or non-sticky type. We can also go for by microscopical examination that any kind of parasite in the form of tapeworm segments or roundworm or hookworm or any segments of parasite can be found or not. So this macroscopical examination of stool is also very important as to the microscopical examination. So both should be done because there are few clues which can be seen only by the macroscopical examination, like a green color stool will be seen in the Giardia infection. The smell of stool is also very important because it will help to have a clue, that is it will be what kind of parasitic infection. Fatty stool, that is Statoria, is also very important. Whenever there is fat metabolism or fat malabsorption is there, there is a chances a few parasite will be there. Microscopical examination, after microscopical examination should be done in the form of direct microscopical examination with the use of saline. We can also use the iodine bound preparation because iodine is very helpful to give the contrast to the nucleus and other structures. Thin smear is not commonly useful for the stool sample, but we can go for the staining technique, that is the permanent staining technique in the form of iron hematoxylin staining and Werles trichrome staining. If the parasite load is very low and this direct examination is not able to find out any parasites or worm or any trophozoite or any other kind of parasitic clue, and we are highly suspecting that this parasitic infection is there, then we should go for the concentrations method, that is flotation technique and sedimentation technique. So for stool examination, one is macroscopical examination, one is microscopical examination. There is another important detection, that is antigen detection directly from the stool is also very important, and another is the molecular diagnosis from the stool directly can also be helpful, but there are few criteria which is different for antigen detection and molecular diagnosis. So microscopical examination, thin emulsion of small amount of feces should be done, few drops of saline is taken. Lugol's iodine will be helpful to see the nuclear details and glycogen vacuoles in the cyst. Protozoa, cyst, eggs and larvae of helminth crystals, Charpot-Leyden crystal will be seen by the microscope. Concentration method is scanty parasite is in the sample, then we should go for the concentration method, either the flotation method or the sedimentation method. Flotation method is done by use of the solution of high specific gravity. So when we are using the high specific gravity solution to mix the stool will be floated. Along with the stool, the eggs or cyst will also get float. So saturated sodium chloride solution can be used for flotation technique, or zinc sulfate centrifugation flotation technique can also be used. Sedimentation techniques, by use of low specific gravity, the sedimentation technique is done. Here the formal ether method is commonly used for sedimentation method. This method are very in detail. There are many steps in this flotation technique and sedimentation technique that you can refer from the parasitology book. There is another technique that is called as the Stroll's technique for counting the helminth egg. How much the amount of egg is there in the 1 gram amount of the stool sample, that can be done. For that we have to take the 3 gram of stool, we have to mix 42 ml of water in this stool, and from this suspension we have to take 0.15 ml of the suspension on the slide, and we have to examine this slide under the microscope, and we have to count the egg. The number of count which is found in this suspension should be multiplied with the 100, that will give the number in 1 gram of stool sample. This is the Stroll's technique for the counting of helminthine egg. Now third, the testing method which can be done directly from the stool sample is the immunodiagnostic test, that is the antigen detection test. We can take the fresh sample or a preserved stool sample for this antigen detection test. For amoebiasis, there are kits available, that is the enzyme immunoassay kits, which are commonly available for detection of the fecal antigen for diagnosis of intestinal amoebiasis. These assays uses the monoclonal antibody that detect the galactose inhibited adherence protein in the pathogenic E. histolytica. There are also other techniques or another types of kits are also available for amoebiasis. For cryptosporidiasis also there is a kit available. Here we are using the direct fluorescent antibody test, which identifies the oocyst in the concentrated or unconcentrated fecal specimen by using the fluorescence isothiocyanate labeled monoclonal antibody, which is the more sensitive test. And there are kits available for such kind of direct fluorescent antibody test. For giardiasis also the direct fluorescent antibody assay is available. Another is the molecular diagnosis. If an unequivocal identification of parasite cannot be made, then the stool specimen can be analyzed using the molecular techniques such as the polymerase chain reaction. This PCR amplified fragment can be analyzed by using the restriction fragment length polymorphism or DNA sequencing if further characterization is needed. So sample for this PCR technique can be the fresh sample, but this sample should be kept cold or it should be frozen until the DNA extraction procedure is done. We can use any kind of the extraction kit we can use. PCR analysis is mostly done by the real-time PCR, but we can also go for the conventional PCR. This molecular technique in the stool sample is very rarely used, but there are some situations where it can be helpful. Second is the blood examination. After the stool examination, there is another important specimen for parasitic examination is the blood examination. Here we can take the fresh capillary blood of the finger or a earlobe. Venous blood which is collected in the EDTA, that is the anticoagulant, is also very helpful. Blood sample will be used for microscopical examination, that is the thin smear preparation, thick smear preparation, and the wet mount for the microfilaria. Also we can go for the molecular diagnosis or the detection of parasite antigen. Also we can go for the isolation of the organism by culture, or we can also do the specific test. For blood sample collection, we should choose any of the finger. We have to clean by the spirit, and then we have to prick. We have to take the clean slide. Over the one side of the slide, we should make the thick smear, and then on the another side of the slide, we should prepare a thin smear, which is of the tongue-shaped smear. Thick smear is helpful whenever we are suspecting the amount of parasite which is very low. So whenever the light infection is there in the blood, and this thick smear will be helpful for this light infection to be diagnosed, because it is going to detect or screen the larger amount of the blood in the very small area. So whenever the light infection is there, first smear that should be examined is the thick blood smear preparation. And another important advantage of the thick smear preparation is it can be stained later. Thin smear preparation is after the light infection which is identified by the thick smear, we can identify the species of that parasite by the thin smear preparation. So that is the advantage of preparation. There is another important for blood examination is microfilariasis. The sample collected for microfilariasis diagnosis mainly because of the periodicity of the microfilaria. We have to take the blood samples specifically at the night or in the daytime according to the suspected microfilaria. Or also we can go for the diethyl carbamazepine provocation test. When we are giving the diethyl carbamazepine tablet, after 2 hours the patient's blood will have the microfilaria in the circulation from the lymph node, and these parasites can be diagnosed from the blood sample which is collected after 2 hours of the diethyl carbamazepine tablet test. Also for microfilariasis, thick and thin smear preparation is important, but there is another technique, that is concentration technique for this blood by sedimentation or the membrane filtration technique by use of filter. So this for microfilariasis, this concentration and membrane filter method is also very important. We can also go for the molecular diagnosis using the blood sample. That blood can be collected on the EDTA tube, or it can be collected in the filter paper, that is Wattsman filter paper. From that we have to do the DNA extraction, and species specific diagnosis can be done according to the gene sequence or gene or kit which is available for the molecular diagnosis. From this blood also we can detect the antigen from the blood sample. There are rapid tests available in the form of immunochromatographic test, which is commonly used for the malarial antigen which is present in the peripheral blood. It is only going to diagnose P. falciparum according to the kit, but there are also kits which is available which is able to diagnose the P. Plasmodium species and also differentiates Plasmodium falciparum from another Plasmodia species. So these are the available kit for Plasmodium identification as by the antigen detection, that is malaria antigen, Binax Now, Optimal, Marcromed, malarial test, Paracheck, PF. Also there are rapid antigen tests available for Wucheria bancrofti, that is ICT filariasis, and filariasis antigen CLIA test. Another important test we can do for parasitic identification is the isolation of the organism from the blood. This is commonly used for the parasite which can be isolated and cultivable. So for that, the diagnosis of Leishmania species is made by microscopical examination of the non-motile intracellular form, that is MST-GOT form, in stain section from the lesions, and by culture of the motile extracellular form, that is pro-MST-GOT form, on the suitable media. Here the advantage of this method is only we can use the parasite which are cultivable. The non-cultivable parasite cannot be isolated on the culture media. The culture media is available in the form of axenics, polygenic, monoxenics, and there are such kind of media are available for the parasitic cultivation. Axenis means there is no another type of bacteria or any organism is available in the culture media for growth of this parasite. Polyxenis means many kind of bacteria or any other substance which is available, that is live substance is available for the parasite to the grow, and they are of multiple type. Monoxenic means only a single type of bacteria or a live organism will be available for the parasite to be grown. So we can grow this parasite according to the available media in the form of axenic, polyxenic or monoxenic type of culture media. Specific test is also available for the leishmaniasis or malariasis. Here is available test is MQ testing, that is mefloquine test is. Mefloquine is recommended by CDC as a prophylactic against the malaria. When individuals who are on mefloquine prophylaxis exhibit the signs of malaria, blood sample is collected and analyzed for the presence of drugs. So drug is extracted from the blood and concentration is determined by the high performance liquid chromatography method, and determining the level of mefloquine in the blood helps to assess if an individual was adherent with his or her medication. This procedure is also helpful to determine the treatment failure due to mefloquine resistance form of malaria. Serum plasma and another specimen is also required. Serum or plasma is required for all parasitic disease for immunochromatographic or immunodiagnostic test. A single sample is sufficient. Acute and convalescent specimens are not necessary. CSF and eye fluids are acceptable for selected disease but must be accompanied by the serum specimen. Serum for all tests is 0.5 ml of serum or plasma is available. CSF which is required is 0.5 ml, which is only for the cysticercosis or another kind of ascariasis testing. For eye fluid, it is 0.1 ml is also enough, and it is acceptable only for the toxocariasis identification. So these are the serological tests: immunohematography, ELISA, CIEP, immunofluorescent test, complement fixation test, which is available for amoebiasis, leishmaniasis, malaria, toxoplasma, trichinosis, filariasis, and echinococosis. Also, which are another important test, skin test is available, but it is not commonly used because the specificity is low and cross-reactivity is also common. That is, the Cassoni test and Leishmani test is available. There are also so many skin tests, but they are not commonly used, but they are also useful as a diagnostic procedure for the parasitic identification. Now, the cultivation of parasite. Cultivation method is useful for amoeba, leishmaniasis, trypanosoma, and malaria parasite. As I had already discussed, the cultivation is possible on the axenic, monoxenic, and polygenic type of culture media. Another method for parasitic identification is animal inoculation, where for leishmaniasis, the young hamster is useful. For trypanosomes, rat and mouse can be useful animal. For toxoplasma, any laboratory animal can be used for the cultivation and animal inoculation. Xenodiagnosis is useful for Chagas disease or vector infected. Here, vector which is infected by the parasite has to bite a specific animal for a human or an animal for a specific time of period, and then that animal or a human will be observed for the signs and symptoms for that specific disease. This is called as a xenodiagnosis. Sputum examination is mainly useful for the parasite like Paragonimus, Westermann's eggs, Strongyloides torcoralis larva, Ascaris lumbricoides larva, hookworm larva, and very rarely for the Entamoeba histolytica. Sputum should be obtained from the lower respiratory passage and should not be salivary, and sputum sample should be collected first in the morning because it will have the collection which is overnight be present in the lungs. So this morning sample will be very helpful if it is collected properly and the lower respiratory specimen is available by this collection, which is very helpful. Sputum sample can be examined in the several ways, that is unfixed specimen can be centrifuged and then the sediment is examined for direct weight mount. If the sample is very viscous, then we can add the 3% of sodium hydroxide and then centrifusion, then the sediment is examined for the parasite identification. Or the specimen is delayed for the transportation, we can preserve by adding the 10% formalin or formal ethyl acetate. Specimen can be preserved in PVA if protozoa are suspected and stained with the trichrome strains. Vaginal swabs, which is also very important swab for parasitic identification, mainly for the Trichomonas vaginalis trophozoite, which is usually done by the preparing direct weight mount preparation, which is collected from the vaginal swab and scraping. If the specimen cannot be examined immediately, it should be preserved in the PV and stain smear can be examined later. Also, there are available kit for the detection of trichomes in the form of TVAG or quick trick named kit are also available. If there is a delay and direct weight mount preparation is not possible, we can use such kit for identification of Trichomonas vaginalis. Tissue specimen is also helpful whenever we are suspecting the free living amoeba. that is the tissue specimen in the form of biopsy, surgical or necropsy specimen collected for identifying free living amoeba, that is Naegleria, Balamuthia and Acanthamoeba. The desired specimen should include the tissue slide stained with the hematoxylin and eosin stain, unstained slide for indirect immunofluorescence stain, unfixed brain tissue or CSF for PCR test, unfixed corneal tissue mainly for the Acanthamoeba, and paraffin embedded tissue blocks is also helpful. So according to our need, we can do the staining or unstaining preparation, and we can use the fixing or unfixing of this tissue specimen. Cellophane tube or cellulose tap or swab tube technique is mainly helpful for the demonstration of pinworm egg. The most reliable and widely used technique for demonstrating this pinworm, that is the Entropius vermicularis, is the cellophane tube or cellulose tap method. The adhesive part of the tube or tap is applied to the perianal area first in the morning, where the eggs of this Entropius vermicularis will be aggregated in the perianal area in overnight. So specimen should be collected on 3 consecutive morning prior to the bathing. If any of the one day smear is negative, for that we have to rule out properly, and for that 3 consecutive morning sample is important. If an infection is present, the egg and sometimes the adult form of Entropius vermicularis will be seen in the cellophane tube or swab tube or cellulose tap method and can be seen under the microscope. That is the plano-convex types of egg will be seen. Urine sample is also helpful for identification of urinary schistosomiasis. Presence of schistosomia hematobium egg in the urine is diagnostic for such kind of urinary schistosomiasis, which are pointed at one end. This schistosoma hematobium egg are pointed at one end. Eggs usually shed in the urine usually at around the midday. So an optimum urine sample for diagnosis should be collected at the noon. Specimen should be immediately centrifuged at 4000 rpm. For 15 to 20 minutes, and from the sediment we have to prepare the weight mount preparation. Trichomonas vaginalis is also sometimes be diagnosed in the urine, where the motile trophozoite may also be found in the urine, especially if in infected male patient. For that also the centrifugation of the urine sample is important. Temporary stains such as methionine blue is also useful for the Trichomonas vaginalis. Whenever we are identifying the specimen by microscopical examination or by the staining or without unstained preparation, there are some artifacts that we should be careful while examination of such kind of microscopical preparation. Sometimes the epithelial cell, macrophage or white blood cells or plants or vegetable cells or fat globules or fibers can confuse them with the larva or egg or cyst or trophozoite. So we have to take care. Here there are some slides for such artifacts. In the first slide, the white blood cells can be mistaken for the protozoid cyst. In the second image, the fat globules or fat cells are seen, which can be mistaken with the trophozoites or a protozoan cyst. Here the platelets in the smear can be misconfused with the Trypanosoma cruzi. In the below slide, there is also the preparation, which is in the form of, we can confuse this preparation of this nucleator red blood cell in the thin smear, which is stained with the giemsa, and we can confuse this with the Plasmodium species, the schizon form. In the upper slide, there is a Helicosporium fungal spore or related type of contamination is there, but here we can also misconfuse or mistaken this for the microfilaria in the stain smear preparation. So these are the contamination that can be in the form of airborne contamination or some other kind of fungal spore. In the below slide also the oval jolly body, which is found in the patient of splenectomized patient, but we can confuse or we can mistaken this for the Plasmodium infection in some patients. So we have to be very careful when we are examining such kind of preparation. Here the another slide where the leukocytes which are stained, the macrophage which are stained, which can be mistaken for the amoebiasis or amoeba, the cyst or trophozoite of the amoeba because of the trichrome strain of this leukocyte and macrophage. In the below image also the epithelial cell which has a dark nucleus which is stained by the trichrome strain, and we can mistaken it with the amoeba. Here also the Pullen grain, which can be confused with the roundworm or tapeworm or Taenia solium or Saginata egg. In another photograph also the Pullen grain, which is similar to the looks with the Ascaris lumbricoid egg. So we have to be very careful because such eggs has a very clear double celled or single layered or double layered kind of boundary, and which has a very clear cut area, and there is specific measure amount of egg is also available. There is amount or diameter of these eggs is also very clear. So it should be very clear to be examined properly. So these are some photographs. Here the yeast cell, which is seen in all the photographs in the stain preparation or weight mount preparation or iodine preparation or in the form of any kind of staining, that is modified AFB stain, this yeast cell may be confused with the giardiasis, or may be confused with the entamoeba, or may be confused with the Cryptosporidium X. So this is all about the laboratory diagnosis of parasitic infection. Thank you.